Stephen Wilson has taken on Pink Floyd at Pompeii, remixed, remastered and reissued in 2025. But does it honour the original or smooth away its soul? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time. And if it is your first time, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and tap the notification bell. It really does help the channel grow. Today we're delving deep into the highly anticipated 2025 Stephen Wilson remix of Pink Floyd at Pompeii. This is a release that fans of Floyd and audiophiles alike have been buzzing about for some time now, since it was announced. Stephen Wilson, the remix wizard behind modern reimaginings of King Crimson, Yes and Jethro Tull, has taken on one of the most atmospheric and experimental films ever made. So the big question is, has he elevated it, redefined it, or tampered with something sacred? Let's find out. Pompeii was filmed in 1971 in an empty Roman amphitheatre, part documentary, part concert film, part psychedelic dream sequence. No crowd, no applause, just raw performance. It's already taken on a unique historical place in Pink Floyd's history. Over the years it's gone through several iterations, from the original theatrical release to the 2003 director's cut with added studio footage, and then eventually the 2016 obfuscation mix from the early years box set by Andy Jackson and Damon Iddins. That mix garnered less than favourable reviews at the time due to its excessive use of compression. While that worked in some places, it was a point of contention for many listeners. Personally, I didn't mind the 2016 mix. It actually sounds pretty good on the headphones, but I do feel it failed to deliver the same impact when played on a stereo system. One noticeable strength of that version is that echoes were stitched together and presented as one complete piece, as it rightly should be. That continuity added to the immersive experience and preserved the integrity of the composition. Now, in 2025, we get what Wilson calls the sonic clarity the performance always deserved, in quotes. The visuals haven't been creatively altered, but the film has been remastered in 4K and is available on Blu-ray, which I have here. So if you want the best visual pairing for this new mix, it's out there, just buy the Blu-ray. This release focuses entirely on the audio, remixed from the original multi-track tapes in stereo, Dolby Atmos and 5.1, with Wilson's usual fidelity to the material's emotional core. One element that truly shines in this remix is the treatment of the drums. Nick Mason's kit sounds better here than it arguably ever has in this material. Clear, natural, crucially not overly compressed as it was in the 2016 early years box. There's punch and space, especially in the toms and cymbal work. The overall drum mix feels dynamic without being artificially boosted or squashed. The first thing you'll notice is the space. Wilson delivers impressive clarity and spatial depth here, even if some of the rawness is lost in the process. It's important to distinguish between the formats. Although the vinyl and Blu-ray share the same core mix, they sound noticeably different. The Blu-ray edition is more immediate and visceral. Gilmour's guitar is front and centre, especially during the solos in Echoes, for example, cutting through with authority and emotional power. In contrast, the vinyl is smoother, perhaps too smooth to my ears anyway. Much of the raw energy and edge has been polished away. Gilmour's guitar tends to sit further back in the soundstage on vinyl, losing some of its bite. That was quite apparent to me when I listened to it on my system. The differences aren't huge, but they're definitely noticeable, and they impact the energy of the listening experience when you're listening on vinyl. One of the biggest changes Roger Waters' bass. In the original mix, it was loud, gritty and full of character, an aggressive presence that grounded the performance. In this new 2025 mix, Wilson has smoothed it out significantly. However, in some sections the bass can be a bit boomy, adding weight but at times clouding the precision of the low end. While the mastering preserves its presence on vinyl, the mix itself trades away much of the grit for polish. The bass is now more balanced and integrated into the overall mix. Some may find that cleaner and more refined, but it does lose some of the raw energy that helped define the original. The vinyl pressing itself is very well executed. It's quiet, it's flat, and it's free of any pressing defects. I won't do an unboxing, you've seen hundreds of those, but this is the vinyl. Unboxing of the vinyl record. So this is the jacket. It's a double album, obviously. There's the hype sticker. What I do like is in the gatefold, you've got photographs, but they're spot glossed. Really, really nice. Almost giving it that sort of laminated texture. You've got the poster. I mean, this has been discussed on other YouTube channels. I'm not going to go into major details about the record itself physically, but I'm here actually to talk about the vinyl pressing itself and the music within. The vinyl pressing itself is very well executed. It's flat and quiet and free of any pressing defects. That's always a strong starting point with vinyl. However, the vinyl was definitely not cut hot. You really have to increase the volume just to get it anywhere near being listenable. If you put well, as I did, I just put the needle on the other day and there was nothing there. It was just flat, but I turned the volume up and everything came alive. Even then, the mastering choices feel a little too polite, especially when contrasted with the Blu-ray audio. The Blu-ray version, by comparison, is a marked improvement over the vinyl. David Gilmour's guitars are loud and proud in that mix, exactly where they should be. This contrast raises the question of whether the issue with the vinyl lies in the mastering. It's possible that some of the restraint heard on vinyl stems not from the mix itself, but from the mastering decisions, particularly given the half-speed master process and quieter output level. It's a more visceral experience overall, and while the vinyl holds up in terms of warmth and balance, it definitely leaves me wanting in that area. Miles Scholl, as you probably all know, cut the mastering and the lacquers at Abbey Road at half speed. Miles is an extremely talented mastering engineer. However, he's not perfect and sometimes drops the ball. A bit like Steven Wilson, if you want my honest opinion. In some cases, while some aspects of the mastering may have contributed to a restrained feel on the vinyl, particularly compared to the Blu-ray, I think he's handled the job with care and attention to detail. The result is respectable. It's not entirely without compromises though. There are no details on where this was pressed. My gut feeling is that it was likely done at GZ or GZ in the Czech Republic, even though there are no identifiers on the dead wax, which there normally are with GZ releases. Gut feeling tells me it was GZ. Now on to the mix itself. Steven Wilson's work here has both its strengths and its drawbacks, in my opinion. First, the positives. The stereo imaging is genuinely excellent. Wilson deserves full credit for achieving this, given the limited multi-track source material available. The original live recordings were done on a mobile 8-track and then later bumped up to 16 tracks during post-production for the film's soundtrack. Within those constraints, he's created a spatially engaging soundstage. However, when compared to the original film mix, the DVD from 2003 and even the 2016 remix, there are some notable issues. Chief among them is David Gilmour's guitar. During the funky solo section in Echoes, the aggression we see in the original film performance and once heard clearly in the original mix is significantly reduced. This is just on the vinyl version, you understand. The guitar during the solo in Echoes appears to sit lower in the mix and feels too polite, losing much of the bite and energy that defined that solo. Similarly, Roger Waters' bass in that same section has lost its grit and punch. That said, this may not entirely be the fault of Steven Wilson's mix itself. The mastering for vinyl likely plays a role in softening those elements, in my opinion. The Blu-ray audio offers a more vivid presentation of both instruments, suggesting the core mix is intact, but perhaps not optimally transferred to vinyl, if you know what I mean. This may help explain why some of Wilson's previous remixes haven't translated as successfully to vinyl either. For example, Wet Dream, I don't know what the CD of that's like, but certainly the vinyl is awful. It's not very good at all. Wilson has done an admirable job smoothing out the sound, no doubt, and creating a pristine, clean and polished remix. But therein lies the problem. It's arguably too polished, maybe. The rough edges, the ambient grit and rawness that gave Pompeii its sense of place have largely been removed or diminished. The instruments are so evenly balanced that the whole thing begins to feel a bit sterile to me. In short, it's lost a lot of the character many of us grew to love in the original soundtrack. Let me be upfront about something. Like a lot of listeners, I haven't heard the Atmos or the 5.1 mix of this release. I missed the IMAX screening when it briefly ran locally to me. And for now, I'm living the stereo and vinyl experience. And honestly, that's how I connect with music anyways. That said, my track record with Steven Wilson's vinyl mastering hasn't been great, as you know. I own Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull, Brave by Marillion and Wet Dream by Richard Wright, all remixed by Wilson. And I've felt each suffered in different ways. Wet Dream in particular sounded overly compressed in sections. Some of the space and dynamics, subtlety of the original seemed squeezed out. Certainly Rick's voice was absolutely ruined on that remix. Thick as a Brick not only lacked a bit of warmth and low-end presence, but also had audible changes in the mix itself. Enough that I covered it in detail in one of my shootout videos. Same with Wet Dream. I'll put a link to those down below. Those weren't just mastering issues, they altered the feel of the records. In my experience up until now, Wilson has seemed better suited to 5.1 and Atmos mixing, those formats playing to his strength. But the vinyl side of things, more often than not, it felt like an afterthought to me. Until now, the good news is that Pompeii marks a turning point, I think. This pressing is a clear step up, to be fair. There's real presence in the low end, Roger Waters' bass isn't buried and Nick Mason's drums have proper punch and scale. The stereo image remains impressively open. Much of the sonic depth from Wilson's mix translates well to vinyl, albeit not cut hot, and there is this issue with Gilmour's guitar. Ambient passages like the swirling midsection of Echoes are still flattened just slightly compared to what I imagine the Atmos mix might offer. But overall this feels far more balanced and sympathetic than some of his previous vinyl work. What else can I add? Personal disappointment though, Echoes is split into two parts just like the original film. Now, I understand that this is a film soundtrack and within that visual narrative the break makes sense. But we're not talking about video here, we're talking about audio. And as a vinyl listener, I've always preferred to experience Echoes as one uninterrupted piece. It's a complete journey, musically and emotionally, and splitting it, even with technical justification, breaks that spell a little bit to me. It's a small frustration in an otherwise excellent presentation, but worth noting for those who value album flow and continuity on vinyl. If you're a stereo or vinyl listener, this version holds up. It feels considered, and for once doesn't leave you wishing you had the Blu-ray instead. Albeit, you know, the Blu-ray, the levels are better on the Blu-ray. Musical highlights, let's talk tracks. Echoes dominates the experience as it always has. But in this remix, it's practically redefined. The infamous Seagull section now has unsettling depth. The mid-section is more hypnotic than ever. Wilson manages to retain the eerie feel while giving it polish. Set the controls for the Heart of the Sun benefits hugely from this remix. The dynamics between Rick's Farfisa organ and the gong hits now have cinematic impact. Got an itchy nose. Careful with that axe, Eugene. It's still a horror show in the best possible way. Wilson amplifies the tension in this. You hear the breath, the restraint, and when it explodes, it really explodes. Even the less talked about Mademoiselle Nobbs with the howling dog sounds cleaner and somehow more musical. Final thoughts. What are my final thoughts? Well, I should say up front, I don't subscribe to the Steven Wilson is a genius camp. I had lots of comments on one of my previous videos about Steven Wilson, basically dissing my opinion on Steven Wilson. I have an opinion about Steven Wilson, and it is my opinion. However, I take him as he is, a very clever and talented producer and remixer who, like anyone, is human and makes creative decisions that won't always land with every listener. Alright? He's done remarkable things in surround formats and has a great ear for clarity and structure. But not every choice he makes works for everyone. That perspective definitely shaped how I received this remix. So, is this the definitive version of Pink Floyd at Pompeii? That really depends on what you value most, I think. If you're nostalgic for the raw edge, grit and unpredictable nature of the original mix, you may find this version too tidy and polite. While the 4K visual remaster is stunning, to be fair, the Blu-ray absolutely brilliant. And the new mix offers clarity and stereo separation that was previously impossible. The Blu-ray audio is also a significant upgrade from the original DVD audio. It's cleaner, well balanced, more immersive overall. That said, it does come at the cost of some of the original atmosphere and energy. Steven Wilson, I think, has brought remarkable technical precision to this remix, no doubts about that. But in smoothing out all those rough edges, some of the spirit of the original has been lost. Gilmour's guitar, particularly in that funky section of Echoes, lacks the aggression seen on screen and once heard in previous versions. Though this is only true to the vinyl pressing, which is disappointing. On the Blu-ray, his guitar is mixed up front with far more clarity and impact, making the contrast all the more noticeable between Blu-ray and vinyl. On the vinyl pressing, the mix feels a little bit too polite, as I say, and balanced, too clean, sacrificing the primal qualities that made the performance feel so raw and immersive. And the decision to split Echoes across two sides of vinyl, as in the film, may preserve historical structure, but it breaks the musical journey for me. I give this album, and I'm talking about the vinyl now, 8.5 out of 10, and in many ways it's a really, really good remaster, but held back from a perfect 10 by its overly polished sound, the loss of instrumental grit and rawness, especially in Gilmour Walters' bass, and the disruptive split of Echoes. While Wilson's clarity and stereo imaging shine, the result feels too clinical compared to the character and atmosphere of the original. It's still a must-hear and a must-see for any Pink Floyd fan, and if you're sitting on the fence, go and buy it. But it's not quite the definitive version some may have hoped for. Thanks for watching. If you've picked up this new release, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this review helpful, Don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps the channel grow. Until next time, take care and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye bye.